G'day folks, today we're going to be doing an unboxing and an initial setup of the new DJI Osmo Action. So let's just open it up and we'll see what all comes inside. So I've kind of done this a little bit backwards. I've already made a full review of the DJI Osmo Action, which you can watch on my channel. I'll put the link down below in the description. I was able to do a full review on launch day because I did have early access to it, but because I did have it so early on, right from the factory, it didn't come with any kind of box or instructions. I do like to do unboxings on my channel, so on launch day I ordered a retail version in for myself. So let's just open it up here and we'll take a look at it. There it is there. We'll just set that off to the side for a minute while we open up the rest of the box. So this little box here is where all the accessories are going to be that come with it. So we'll see what we all have inside there. So the first thing here is a little box, and inside of it is the battery. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. I kind of like that they include these boxes here. They actually have a little spot for a memory card up in the top, so you can carry some extra memory card around with your spare batteries. When you do purchase spare batteries, they all come with these little cases, and that's kind of a nice idea. Now here we have DJI's version of their mount system. You can see we have a flat one for flat surfaces and a curved one for curved surfaces. So you can see it adopts the GoPro kind of finger mount system there, and they just go on. They lock in. And you press that button to unlock them. So it's kind of nice that they did keep the GoPro kind of finger mount system. And that's really good for people who will be upgrading to the new Osmo Action, because a lot of the gear that you have for your GoPro will work with the Osmo Action. Things like chest mounts, extension poles, grips, suction cups, all that gear that uses the finger mount system will work with the Osmo Action. Inside that little bag, we get a USB-C cable. And then we have a thumb screw. Now DJI has done the thumb screw a little bit differently than GoPro. Now it's kind of a pro and a con. First off, it has these little flanges to the side. That really allows you to get in there and tighten up your action camera if it's going to be on something like a mountain bike or a surfboard, something that it could get a lot of force and you don't want it to move. If you've ever worked with a GoPro, you know sometimes these can get really locked down and you have to use a little bit of a wrench to loosen them up. With these flanges, you should be able to do without that. The only problem with them, which is a very minor thing, is that it's not as easy to turn. You kind of always have to have that kind of grip on it, but I do like that they included that style as well. So let's put all this stuff aside here and we'll take a look at the camera. So here it is here, it's in the frame. You can see a frame similar to that of a GoPro. Let's take some of these stickers off. Now, if you haven't watched any reviews or unboxings yet, the big thing you're going to notice right away is that it does have a small screen on the front. That front screen is going to be very handy to some people. For others, it's not something they're really going to be making use of, but if you're doing anything like vlogging, it's just going to really help you compose your shot. Even for somebody who's going to be mounting this, say, on a mountain bike, you know, if you're going to be facing the rider, you can actually see what you're filming instead of kind of guessing. At the top here, we have a power and display button. We have a record button on the side there. We have an LED light, and there's one microphone there. On the side here, we have a speaker and a second microphone. Now, at the front here, there's something very interesting. These little ducts here, those are cooling ducts, and supposedly that's supposed to help keep the Osmo Action running cool when recording 4K video. So definitely that'll be interesting to see how well that does work. GoPros were known for overheating when recording in 4K, especially on warm days. On the back, we have our full-size screen. Then on the side here, we have our USB-C compartment. And just like a GoPro, that door does come off. Pops back on like that. So we have our USB-C port, and then we have a slot for our memory. So the memory goes in with the graphic facing the bottom, and it will support cards up to 256 gigabytes. At the bottom there is where we put the battery. Now, they've done something a little bit different here. They've included the outer body of the camera right onto the battery, and you can see they have a seal there to keep it waterproof. And it is waterproof up to 11 meters, by the way, so it's 1 meter more than the GoPro. Now, I did mention this in my review video. I really like that idea because every time you purchase a new battery, you're getting a brand new seal. And what happens, these seals can break down over time. But this way, every time you buy a new battery, you're getting a new seal. And really, you could extend the longevity of the camera doing it that way. Now, I'm going to show you something here. When we go to press in the battery, you can see we have two clips, and that's how we take the battery out. They have this orange kind of coloring underneath, so we can tell there right away that the battery's not seated properly. If we press it, you can see that goes away. So that's a nice visual way to tell if the battery's not seated. So just like the GoPro on the front here, we have a lens that is removable. This one's a little bit different. You just twist it off. And I really like that because it comes off super easy. If you've ever struggled with one of the GoPro lens protectors, you know that it's not the easiest thing to get on and off. This one just comes off so easily. And that's important for a couple reasons. First off, if you ever scratch or damage the lens cover, you can purchase these on the DJI website for about 15 bucks. But it also makes adding things like ND filters super easy. We can just throw out an ND filter just like that. You know, having an easy way to attach ND filters is a small thing, but very important. If you're out in the field, you don't want to be messing around too much, especially if you're in a dusty environment. The longer you have your filters off, the more chance you're going to get dust in that up under the lens. These filters here are by DJI. They are for sale on their website. They're out of stock currently, but they should be coming into stock soon. When you buy the set, they come with an ND4, ND8, ND16, and ND32. Freewell gear actually makes a nice set as well. I just got these in, and I'm in the midst of reviewing them, so keep an eye out on my channel for that. We'll do a full review of the Freewell gear ones. And I do have a set of Polar Pro ones coming in, so definitely I'll be reviewing them as well. Now, if we compare it to a GoPro, you'll see that they're almost exactly the same size. The Osmo Action's about 10 grams heavier, so that's not much at all. But pretty well for height and thickness, they are pretty well identical. So to power up the Osmo, we just press the power button there at the top, and it should power up right away. It'll ask us to go through the setup process. Hit English. It's going to tell us that we need to activate it with the Mimo app. Now, before I continue with this video, I'm going to connect to the Mimo app. We're going to activate it, and we're going to update the firmware. It's very important before you start using the Osmo Action, if you order it brand new, you have to update the firmware. A lot of changes have been made since the firmware that comes shipped with it. So I've got my smartphone here now, and what we're going to do is we're going to activate the Osmo Action, and then we're going to update the firmware. If you already own the Osmo Pocket, you're going to use the exact same app. It's compatible with both. If you don't own an Osmo Pocket, you just have to go to the App Store or Play Store and download DJI Mimo. Now, if you already have the Mimo app on your smartphone, make sure it's up to date because DJI did release an update to make it compatible with the Osmo Action. So the first thing we're going to do is power on our Osmo Action. Then we're going to launch our DJI Mimo app. From there, we're going to click on this little camera icon, and it's going to search for the DJI Osmo Action, and as you can see there, it found it. So we're just going to hit connect, and right away, we have to agree to their terms. And this is where we go to activate the camera here. And there's a little switch we have to turn on. Basically, it's just authorizing DJI to whatever they have to do. I'm not even sure. But you can't activate it unless you agree to that. So we turn that on, and then we hit next. So it's going to ask us to log into our account. And this is something you only have to do once. So I'm going to go ahead and log into my account here. So now it's going to activate it. And if you don't have a DJI account, you can just go ahead and create one on that same screen. And there we go. It looks like it's activated. So we're going to just hit the skip button because I don't really want to learn any more about the DJI Care refresh. And yep, you can see we got notification, activation success. Gives us a bit of a tour of the camera. And we'll hit done. And now right away it's going to go in and update the firmware. So we'll hit download. I'll pause this video while it's downloading and I'll be right back. So you can see there, update success. So we'll hit done, hit connect. So here we're just basically accepting the connection. And again, this is something you only have to do once. We'll join the Wi-Fi network. And you can see there we also got a notification on the camera that the update was successful. So basically, there we go. Again, it's going to give us a few kind of tips on the screen there that you can just kind of click through. And if you've used the Osmo Pocket with the Mimo app, it's very similar. Here we got some settings we can change. We got some more there. We got more detailed stuff here we can change. And of course over here we can change all our modes. Just like a GoPro, we do have some voice commands. We can turn it on there. Take a photo. Start recording. Stop recording. We can also use the voice to switch to the front screen. Screen switch. And you can see there, the picture's now on the front screen. There's two other ways to switch the screen. One is a double tap with 2 fingers on the back screen. You can see that there. The other way is a long press on the quick select. You can see it now goes back. So the Osmo Action comes with a feature called Rock Steady. That's kind of their version of electronic image stabilization, and it's actually really good. I've been doing some tests, and I got a video coming up where I'm going to kind of go into it a little bit more in detail. And it's at least on par with GoPro's Hypersmooth, if not a tiny bit better. Now, I'm not going to go over all the shooting modes and resolutions because I covered all that in my initial review video. So definitely go ahead and watch that if you want that kind of information. But what I am going to show you here is some of the key features that sets us apart from a GoPro. So first off, if we go to our video shooting modes, you're going to notice that we have slow motion there. The slow motion mode is an easy way to capture slow motion video without having to worry about frame rates and then going into post later on, slowing it down and messing around that way. So if you just want to capture a quick slow motion video, you just go into that mode and start recording. When you're shooting in this mode, you're shooting at 8 times slow motion. The maximum resolution is 1080p and image stabilization is not available, so keep that in mind. The next mode that's not available on a GoPro is HDR. Now that can be important for certain lighting situations and complex environments. If you're shooting a scene that has a lot of highlights and lowlights, you can lose a lot of detail in the lowlights. When you're shooting in HDR, you'll get a lot more detail in the lowlights and your video will be just generally better exposed. Now the next thing I want to show you here, if we go to the time-lapse video mode, of course GoPros do time lapses and they do them very well, but this gives you a little bit more finer detail. So if we swipe up, you'll notice right away that we have many more intervals. The GoPro jumps right from 2 seconds all the way up to 5 seconds, but with the Osmo Action you can see we have a 3 and 4, and sometimes that's important. And it gives us more here in between as well. The other nice thing it does here is that we can set the duration that we want to record for. So we can record for like say 20 minutes. And we can tell here that at 10 seconds, it's going to be a 4-second video when done. Now, if we change that down to a half second, you can see that the video is going to be a minute 20. So that's a really nice feature. It'll tell you how exactly long your time lapse is going to be, so you don't have to calculate it yourself. The infinity symbol at the beginning just basically has no duration. It'll just record indefinitely. And of course, we can change our resolution at the top there. We can go 1080p, 2.7K, or 4K. So those are some really nice tools in the time-lapse video section. Now one thing you will notice that is missing there is the option to do a hyperlapse. In some of the early firmware that I was using, there was a hyperlapse feature there. They did take it out, I'm not quite sure why. Probably they wanted to polish it a bit more, so we will be seeing that in a future firmware update, probably soon. Now in photo mode, this first option here says AEB. That allows us to go in and take bracketed photos if you want to do your own HDR editing. To me, I love taking HDR photos, and you can do it on a GoPro, but you got to do it all manually and it's very tricky. With this, we can set our exposure value for how many stops in between each photo we want, and we can also do a 3-photo HDR set, or we can do a 5-photo HDR set. So these bracketed photos are basically a set of 3 or 5 photos, depending on what you have it set at. They're all done at different exposures. You have some that are underexposed and some are overexposed. That way, when you merge them all together in your HDR software, you get a nice image that it looks really good, that everything's evenly exposed. You got lots of detail in the highlights, you got lots of detail in the lowlights. And of course, we can do photo time lapses. Now, when shooting in the photo mode, it doesn't give us the option for duration. That's just because we're taking still images, but we do have all the extra intervals. And not only that, we have a lot more. We have some really high ones there. You can see we have a 45 second, 125 second. So that's really nice. And just like on a GoPro, when we're taking our photo time lapses or any kind of photo, we can set it to record JPEG and RAW or just JPEG. And while we're in here, of course, we have dewarp, which we can turn on. That's kind of like GoPro's version of linear. Now, the dewarp I find works a lot better. Now, just like when shooting in linear on a GoPro, when you do have dewarp on, it does crop in a little bit. So that's all I'm basically going to cover in this video. Like I said, just an unboxing, setting it up, and a few of the key features. Now, before I go here, just a couple thoughts. I know I'll probably get asked this down in the comments, and that is if you are in the market for an action camera, which one should you buy? You know, at the end of the day, they're both excellent cameras. I wouldn't say one is leaps and bounds ahead of the other. Definitely the Osmo Action has a lot of new features that it brings to the table that the GoPro just doesn't have. That alone kind of makes the Osmo Action a better buy. It's $50 cheaper than the GoPro when the GoPro's not discounted, and it just packs a lot of new features. Now, with that said, both cameras have their strengths and weaknesses, and I'm going to go over that in a separate video. Now, I have been using this for about 2 months now, and I can say that GoPro has some real competition now with this camera. I think we're going to see some exciting things as both companies compete to bring new technology to the market. Now, what we're seeing right now with the Osmo Action, that's not going to be the final thing. DJI is really good for making updates, taking a good product and making it even better. If you look at the Osmo Pocket, the Smart Controller, the Mavic 2 series, they've been adding updates regularly, and not just bug fixes, but they add totally new features, new enhancements to make the product even better. I can imagine we're going to see a lot of interesting things added to the Osmo Action over the coming months. Well, folks, that's basically it for my video. Hopefully you liked it and found some value in it. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up if you did. At this point, I encourage you to go and watch my full review video. It contains a lot more information that some of you may be interested in. It has sample footage and different things like that as well. If you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to do so because we are going to be diving in a little bit deeper to some of the features of the Osmo Action with upcoming videos. We're going to do a lot of comparisons with the GoPro to see how they stack up against one another. Thanks a lot for watching my video. We'll see you in the next one.